Okay, so another Patreon Q&A. Thank you again, Patreons, so much for your support and for your questions, of course. This time I thought we can have a look at VCV 2 beta, maybe look at a few features. Already you can see the UI or the GUI or whatever is quite different. And I want to start with the challenge, the Patreon Discord challenge every month on the Discord channel for patrons. We have a challenge and there are also giveaways. So we have 4 submissions this month. Again, if you are a Patreon, please join us also on Discord. 4 submissions, I gave each one 2 notes. So here we have C and E, C sharp, F, D, F sharp, D sharp, and G. Right, and I have here basically sample and hold, going through a quantizer with those notes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes, right? And to a tuner so we can see which note is selected. I'm going to click 4 times here on the manual gate. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the note that will be chosen. This will be the submission that will win all sorts of different prizes we have. Again, if you're a Patreon, please come join us on Discord. I also started live streaming there occasionally. And if you're not a Patreon, consider joining our community on Patreon. It's quite fun. Okay, so I'm going to click 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have C5. C5. Let's see. C is Thor inside. I will contact you on Discord. You're the winner this month. Every month I will choose one submission at random. And that's it. So again, join us on Patreon, join us on Discord. This was the giveaway. And I already want to start with the first question. So this is VCV 2. This is still in beta. It's an open beta. Everyone can download it and use it. But yeah, it's still in beta. It should be released in November, I guess. This is what how it looked like. And I want to start with the first question because already we can start there with some sounds. So we have a question from Robert Slade. Hi Robert. Hello Omri. I hope you are well. Thank you. There is a YouTube video about Olafur Arnalds and his generative pianos. Spitfire Audio has replicated it in a library called Stratus. Would there be a way to achieve this effect in VCV Rack? Essentially, you play a chord and notes are generated at random intervals, etc. Very cool sounding and would be an interesting patch. Thank you. Yes, it will be a very interesting patch. Actually, I started already experimenting with this idea. There will be, after VCV2 will be released, there will be also once a video about this and I'm going a bit deeper, I guess, because it's a really interesting idea and I'm exploring it. I'm still exploring it, but I have 2 things I want to show you and I saved them also. This is, by the way, the new browser of VCV2. We can zoom in, zoom out, right? We can have the most used, the last used at random and all sorts of different things. We have also favorites, right? So it looks like this, really interesting. But I have 2 strip files that I saved. They will work also in V1. So if you're not using still the beta, they will work in version 1 and they will also, after VCV2 will be released, they will work also in VCV2. So you can use them either way. So I have 2 strip modules saved. If I can just do this, let's see. Patches, let's go with this one. Right, so this is the first strip that I have saved and I will go through this in a second. And again, there will be a dedicated video for this because it's a really interesting concept. So I have here the MIDI module, right? I'm going to select my MIDI device. You can use also other polyphonic sequencers if you want, but something that will generate chords. Right now, this I'm using with the super arpeggiator from Count Modular, which will arpeggiate the chord. So basically it will play one note after the other, but it has really interesting features, this super arpeggiator. So for example, right, we can have the notes played at random. So you hold a chord and the notes will play at random, but this is not all. You can also have 8 different steps, right? A length of 8 steps, and each step can be transpose an octave down or an octave up or stay in the same octave. right? So you can have some of the notes playing an octave up, an octave down, because they are playing randomly. This will happen also randomly, and because, for example, we have now 8 steps. If I hold only 3 notes, soon I will play this also. If I hold only 3 notes, right, the steps will move 1 to 3, and then will repeat themselves. But we have 8 steps, so they will not be aligned, and it will shift, and it will be really generative and sort of random and really interesting. It has also accents and glide for each step, so you can choose this also, right? Really interesting way of taking a chord and splitting it into all sorts of different directions. What I also have here is the FM operator, right, as the voice. So this will play the arpeggiated notes. I have sample and hold here for the feedback. Just to add some variation, I have the accent from the arpeggiator, adding FM, raising the FM depth. I have here all of this going through another VCA, right, and another super sample and hold modulating the VCA polyphonically. So basically, each voice will have a different velocity also. And this is all going to Orbit. Orbit will take this polyphonic signal and will sum it into a monophonic signal with spreading it in the stereo field. And this arpeggiator needs also a clock. So just to keep everything generative, I use the generative clock. I have an LFO, right, triggering sample and hold, and this sample and hold in return is modulating the rate of the LFO. So there's a sort of a feedback loop, modulation feedback loop, and this I'm using as the clock. So now I will hold the chord. I will hold C, E flat, and G. Right, 3 notes. Maybe I will take the velocity a bit down. It's a bit overdriving, and add some reverb, and I need a bit more volume here on my end. Okay, so again, right, I held 3 notes. They were playing randomly. The notes played randomly, also different octaves. Now let's say that I will hold 5 notes, right? Let's say something like this, for example. Right, so you can just hold the chord and the notes will go everywhere. I can also create a sort of a progression, for example. Right? So the notes will play at random octaves and at random timing also, thanks to the LFO. Already I'm feeling a bit more relaxed, right? Random timings. And this is a really basic idea. Of course, you can expand on it. And I hope also to experiment more with this idea. And again, to make a video after VCV Rack 2 will be released and everything will be nice and stable. This strip file will be available for Patreons to download. So if you want to download this strip file, again, it will work also in VCV 1. So you can download it. I want to show you another thing, another variation of this that you can use. Again, this is also something that available in Stratus, I believe. Such an interesting concept, right? So I will go again. In this case, we have with a sequence. Okay. So now what we have here, actually here maybe I can use already this clock. Again, this will be available as a strip file. It will work in both V1 and V2. I will just have here already. Why am I doing this? I can just do this. Haha. Okay, right, this we don't need anymore. Okay, so now I will use again my keyboard. Right, so in this case it will be less generative, but more rhythmic. Right, this is also available in Stratus. You hold the chord and each of the notes will play in a different rhythm. So what I'm doing here, I'm using a sequencer basically, right? And you can use any sequencer you want, of course. I have 1 8 steps, 1 7 steps, 1 5 steps, and 1 6 steps, right, with different steps active. This I'm merging into a polyphonic signal, right, and this will be basically the polyphonic gates. So I hold the chord. Imagine we have here up to 4 notes I can hold. Each note will play a different rhythm. A few things to keep in mind. First of all, in the MIDI module, you will have to select the number of maximum notes. Of course, you can play, in this case, 4. You can use up to 16 different sequences if you want. All sorts of Euclidean sequences. You can combine different ideas. And also, the polyphony mode should be set on reset. By default, it's on rotate. You should set it to reset, because then the same note will be played all the time and each sequence will be assigned to the same note, basically. You can also use rotate and then they will just change all the time. But just so you know, this is how it works. Another thing is this VCA here. Now these sequences, right, they are always running. If I'm not using a VCA, let me disconnect. Already you can see that if I right-click the cable, it will not delete it. I can select to delete the top cable. I said without the VCA. And I have to connect this also here. Right now. Okay. Right, so now I'm not holding a chord, but still this is running because the sequencers are always running. So if on the way to the gate input, I'm using VCA and I'm using the gate output, the polyphonic gate output to open this VCA only when I hold the chord, then the rhythm or the sequences will actually go through. So let me show you how it sounds like. Oh man. Yes, so this is another concept you can experiment with. Again, merging different sequences, so each note will play a different rhythm. Again, there are many more ways you can achieve something generative or something interesting, like the Stratus instrument. It's a contact instrument, as far as I know. Right, there are many ways you can do this. And yes, it's really fun in VCV, depending how many modules you want to use. Of course, you can use more sequencers and more stuff. You can have a whole patch just for this. Really fun. Again, also this will be available for you to download. And yeah, so you can experiment with it a bit. Let's see, let's leave this and let's see. I have the JW, right? The JW for V2, let's just make some sounds and then we will go through some of the features and we will continue with the questions and everything. Okay, so I'm just going to set here polyphony of 4 notes. Right, just going quickly to create some chords here. Right, let's say something like this. Okay, and now let's say divided by 16. right? This will be the gate that I'm using. So if I want to remove, this is already, okay, so first of all, if I'm already here, if I want to remove a cable, I have to hit, to hold shift and then click it, right? And also you can see that when I'm hovering above the output here, the input, I can see it says CV input, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 4 channels connected to VCV MIDI-CV gate output, right? So you can see more information about the inputs and the outputs. As you can see here, things are moving, right? So instead of using the gate from the, I will just let it run actually. Instead of using the gates, I will just let this run always. And the pitch will come from the note sequencer, right? So nice. And let's change, instead of the velocity from the MIDI module, we can use sample and hold. Again, I will use the super sample and hold. I really like it. It has also probability. I'm sorry for the loud noise for a second. Actually, we need a polyphonic signal here because we want a polyphonic sample and hold, so each voice will have different velocity, less probability. Right. Maybe I can also save the patch just if someone wants to download this. Let's call this patch. I don't know why. Oh man. This is nice, right? So again, you can use a MIDI keyboard, you can use something like the note sequencer. Just make sure to keep the polyphony, and this should work. Very cool. Okay, let's continue with the next question. This was a fun question. Thank you so much, Robert. Again, I will explore this more, and there will be also hopefully a dedicated video. Okay, Trinks Sven, hi, hello dear Omri, thank you so much, hi. Is there an easy way to use solfeggio scales in VCV Rack? So yes, there is an easy way. There are two things you can do. First of all, there is Scala quantizer, the poly Scala quantizer, which is available for free from Nischi, which can load any Scala file. Scala files are basically scales saved as a text file, I guess. Sorry, that you can load in something like this. Right, so here in the right-click menu, you have add new Scala file to the library. I will put a link to the Solfeggio Scala file so you can download it. I found it, I will put a link to it so you can download it. Or I will add it to the Patreon, although anyone can find it. So it's not, you just write Solfeggio on Google and you can find it. I will send it to you anyway. And then it will be somewhere here, right? And then you can use Solfeggio scales. You have, it's polyphonic, so you have inputs, outputs, and it will quantize to the Solfeggio scale. And if you want, I don't have it here in VCV2 because it's still not available for V2, but the commercial, we have this. The commercial quantizer Scalar, the VCV Scalar, you can also load their import Scala files, right? You can also export Scala files, never mind. So if you already have it, if you already have this quantizer, you have other interesting features there that you might want to use as well. You can also use Solfeggio in this if you already have it, right? So this is an easy way, I guess it's quite easy to use Solfeggio in VCV. Okay, let's have a look at another question. Jan. Hi Omri, hi. Thank you for all the nice and very interesting videos. Thank you so much, man. In this video, and there's the link, and I will put the link also in the description, really interesting, fun, nice sounding patch. There is a very nice sequence that seems to have a bass pattern with slight variations, where the starting note is constant, but other notes and the length of the sequencer vary. Is there a way to recreate this in VCV Rack? Thank you. So I watched it a few times, I made some research. Basically, it's the clone of the ARP. Yes, so I believe he's using a keyboard there, he's using some sort of a sequencer that you could sequence, so it's not something that happens randomly. I just need another look. Right, but there are ways you can create a sequence that will evolve and change. So let's really do something like this. This is a really nice sound, I really like this. Let me just change the tension here a bit. Very nice. And along the way, I hope to show you a few more features. Right, so let's start with the SEC3. Right, the SEC3 simple sequencer. I will clock it with the same clock. Right, very simple sequencer. I also need a quantizer, and already here maybe I can show you something fun. If I use, for example, the quantizer from VCV, you can see I load it, and by default it will load with the scale that I chose. And you can change it. This is something fun you can do in VCV2. You can right click. First of all, it's much easier to save presets now, and you can have them directly in the right click menu without all the different things you had to do before. There are also factory presets, but there is also the template. So you can save a template, which means that whenever you load the module, it will load directly automatically with the template. Another example I can show you is with the FM operator, right? I'm usually using the FM operator with gates and stuff like this. So I have it by default, loading with the level envelope on, with no sustain, and with just a bit of attack. And every time I load it, this is how it will be in VCV2, of course. There is also a downside to this, because now, for example, if you load an FM operator, it will look differently, and it will be harder for you to follow along with videos, with tutorials and stuff like this. So there is also a downside to it. But I guess this is how it is. It can make life also easier. But now, for example, if I have a tutorial and I'm using an FM operator, I will not have to change the level envelope and the sustain and the attack, but you might have to change it. Maybe you have a different template altogether, right? So it will be harder for you to follow along, which is a bit of a shame, but I guess nothing is perfect. Okay, let's use energy in our case, right, for the voice. So what we have here again, we have an 8-step sequence. Right, let's do something like this. And let's have also an envelope for the built-in VCA. Energy has a built-in VCA. This is the multiply input. Right, so let's do this. Right. This is a simple 8-step sequence. Nothing too amazing. Let's just add a bit reverb before I continue here. Right. So first of all, what we can do is we can have on different steps, we can have random voltage, for example, right? So just on those steps, the pitch will be randomized, but all of the other elements will stay the same. So just in the other sequence in the video, right, you have this bass sequence and things are evolving. So this is something we can do. Now there is one thing you will need. You will need a sequencer that has gate outputs, right? Because then you can, for each of the steps, you can choose to activate the random voltage or not. Or you will need a sequencer that has also multiple rows, or you can patch things in different ways. Of course, it's modular, you can do all sorts of things, but this will be the easiest. So what we'll do before the quantizer, we will add a mixer. I will use the mixer from VCV because it works quite well for this. Right, so the pitch will go to the mixer, and I will use again sample and hold. I will use again the super sample and hold, not only because it has probability, but also because it has level control. Right, so what we will do is this. First of all, it will take the level all the way down. This will go to the second mixer input. Now let's say that I want to have 4 steps with random voltage, right? So I will use logic, and I will tell you in a second also why. Let me just look for it. Right, I will use an OR logic. You can use OR or you can use XOR, it doesn't matter in this case. And what we will do, this logic will basically combine the gates into one stream, into one sequence. So let's say I want step 3, and I want step 5 and 6 and 8, right? 4 steps that will have a random note in them. Okay. So now we are combining them, right? The 4 gates, and they will come out of the OR output as a new sequence, as a new stream of gates. And this will be the trigger for the sample and hold, right? So only on those steps the sample and hold will change. Right, now if I start bringing in the level, now we have always random, but we don't want always random. So there are a few things we can do. I like using the second row for this. So the second row will go to input number 2, right? And this will control, it will go to the CV input, sorry, because this mixer is also a VCA. So it will go to the CV input, and only on those steps I will open this channel. I will solo it for a second, right? Have a listen. Right, so we have basically the same base, but there are 4 notes that will be more or less random. I can change the probability, so it will not happen so often. And there is another thing I want to do. I want the first note to be a sort of a bass note, right? Just like in the video. So what I will do is this. I will add the oct module from VCV, that I can take this an octave down. Maybe even 2 octaves down. No, an octave down is okay. And now all of the other notes I will just take up a bit. Right? Right, now there is another element, and that's the changing of the sequence. Right, now I like to do this in a generative way. So something you can do is use something like chances. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see, let's go with, it should be here because I'm using it quite a lot. Chances. Okay, right, now chances will add probability to gates, right? So what we can do, and again, all of this is with a simple sec3, right? So what we can do, I can use, for example, gate number 7, or you know what, gate number 4, let's say, right? Through the Bernoulli gate, through chances, and this will go and will reset the sequence. So there is a chance that the sequence will be reset after 4 steps. Right? So there is variation. Sometimes the sequence will be shorter, sometimes longer, and again, with the probability you can change this. So if I want most of the time a shorter sequence, I just turn it more to the A part. Right? Really, and really easy technique to create longer sequences from an 8-step sequence. But of course, this can work with other more longer sequences. So for example, the PGMR from Bog Audio, we have the main module which has 4 steps, and we have the expander that has 4 more steps, and you can basically chain them and have a longer sequence, 16 steps, 32, 128, whatever you want. You can chain those expanders and have longer sequences. It has 4 rows, unlike the Sec3 that has 3 rows. So you have 4 rows of modulation, and you have a trigger output for each step, and trigger or gate, you can choose this in the right-click menu, and you have also an input, a trigger input for each step. So you don't have to reset always to step 1, you can also reset to step 7 or jump to step 7 and all sorts of things. So let's change things a bit. Okay, let's do this. First of all, the pitch will come from, okay, we need a clock. Okay, sorry, I'm mixing a few things here. Another interesting feature of VCV2 is when you duplicate a cable with holding control, it will also take the same color. So if I'm using color coding, I have blue for gates, clocks and triggers, yellow for pitch, green for modulation, and red for audio. Right, so if now I want to take the clock, I take it and you can see it's always blue, which is quite fun and quite easy. So this will go to the clock input, right? And I will use the pitch from row A, and let's change this a bit. Let's do something like this. Right. Yes. Right, so this is the pitch. I will use the modulation for the CV of the mixer from row B, and let's select 4 gates that we want to have random pitch on. So let's go with step 4, let's go with step 9, and what is this, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, right? Very cool. The gate here can come also from the clock, and this one here. Right, I'm already going to change or to add modulation to the decay of this AD envelope before we start with the reset stuff. Right, and now this is for the sample and hold, and now we can do something like this. Let's get rid of the Sec3. This is a fun one, and let's do something like this. Right, so now we have more or less the same setup. But now what I will do, I will use, for example, step 3 through the Bernoulli gate, through chances, and there will be a chance that it will trigger, let's say, step, what is this, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So it will jump from step 3, it will jump to step 7, which is quite cool. I can add another one and take, let's say, step, I don't know which one is this, 4, 8, 9, 10, and this will go back to step 1, let's say, right? So now we have a more complex sequence. I miss my blob, but I will add some delay with the clockable delay from Nischi. Right, so it's a clockable delay basically, and we just need a clock. And I will take which clock? I will take this one. Let's change the multiplication. Add some feedback. Right. Maybe we can add some modulation to the FM of energy. So we have a 16-step sequence that is evolving, that is changing, that is not staying the same. Of course, you can have also sequencers doing this and resetting it in all sorts of different places. This should be a blue cable, I forgot which one was it, this one here, right? Okay, before the next question, let me show you a few more features. Let me think. I showed you the template. I showed you the inputs and outputs. I can show you also, I will save the dark mode for later. You can see here, we have, it's always on. We have the CPU usage, the frame per seconds and stuff like this. Oh, this is a truck outside. I'm sorry if it's loud. Right, so this is always on. You can see 17 max, 14 average. If I open the performance meters, you can see they are quite different now. You can see the changes live. Right, so it also looks different. So this, the performance meters. What else? What else? Let me see. We have open recent. I'm not so sure if we had it already. We have... oh, yeah, this is nice. Okay, so let's say, for example, I want to move all of those modules somewhere else. I can just select them, haha, and move them together. I can move them up, I can move them down. Right, I can select just 3 modules and move them everywhere. So it's possible also to select modules now. Not now, when VCV 2 will be released. And it's also possible to save them as a collection. So if, for example, I want to save all of this, right, in the right-click menu, I can save selection as. I can import the selection, which is quite cool, right? So you can save presets or stuff like this. And you can move modules anywhere you like. Another thing I just saw in the right-click menu that is also fun. So if, for example, I have here modules, right, never mind which ones, I'm just going to connect stuff just for this demonstration. Right, so I have stuff connected. Right, now let's say that I want to duplicate a dual gate delay. So if I duplicate it normally, it will duplicate normally, but you can see here there is duplicate with cables, which is Shift Control D, and it will get duplicated with the cables connected, as you can see here. Right, so it will duplicate also the cables, and you don't have to reconnect stuff, which is also quite cool, quite a workflow improvement. So it's also quite cool. A really nice feature. Okay, so let's move on with the next question. Stuart, hi Stuart, you are a workhorse. Sorry. Your output is tremendous, and we are all the more grateful for how much effort you put in your music making and community contributions. Thank you so much, man. How do you keep track of it all? What is your workflow? I mean, I'm struggling with finding a workflow just for getting my ideas out of VCV and into finished pieces of music. I quickly lose track of all the loops, sessions, patches, tracks, and everything else between. How do you do it? This is a really interesting question. How do I do it? I think there are a few things. I mean, first of all, there are things that I cannot control, right? I mean, it's not like I'm in control all the time. But what I like doing is I like time management. So I like to think a day before, 2 days before. If it's the weekend, I'm trying to imagine how my week will look like, what I want to do, what I have to do, when do I do it, when will I finish it, stuff like this. Just planning in my head what I want to do, if it's a video, if it's music. I don't believe in waiting for inspiration. This is not working for me. I believe in getting up in the morning, going to the studio and start working, never mind if I feel like it or not. So I think planning ahead, I guess, a bit, I mean, as much as you can, and time management in a way that you dedicate time for the things you want to do. So if, for example, if I want to make music, I will dedicate a whole day for it at least, and I will not start a different track or a different composition or another anything until I'm not happily finished with what I started already. Now, in the case of Eurorack and modular, it's easier than if you're working in a DAW, because you cannot save things. So if I start a patch on my Eurorack, on my hybrid setup back there, I don't know if you can see it, I cannot do anything else. I cannot start a new track, a new patch, until I'm not finished with this one and it's recorded, right? So it's a bit easier for me. This limitation makes it easier for me to finish things. But still, I think if you start with something, don't quit, make it, finish it. If you don't want to finish it, if you hate it, if you don't like it, delete it and say bye-bye and go to something else, and start something else. I'm making a combination of things, so also videos, sound packs, all sorts of different things for Patreons. I have my courses that I finished. So again, I like to finish what I started before I start something else. If I'm working on a video, just like this one, I will not start a new video until this one is not finished. So I think this is something that helps me a lot to finish things and also dedicate time for stuff. I don't know if you have it, if this is what you do, if it's a hobby just, or if it's not a hobby. I think dedicating time, and also in advance. I think there are days that I'm coming to the studio and I'm like, okay, I don't know what I will do today, and this day ends up with me doing nothing because I didn't have an idea before I came into the studio or the room or whatever with an idea of what I want to do, and that's why I didn't do anything. So I prefer always the night before. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with ideas. I have a list on my phone. My phone is next to me. I have a list on my phone full with ideas. And I will just think, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it. And until it's not finished, I'm not starting anything else. I think this is it. And there are a lot of things I cannot control also, I mean, it's not like... there are no secrets, there's no magic. This is the way it is. Okay, let's have a look at another question. Thank you, Stuart, again. Your top 3 Eurorack modules for 2029. 2029. Wow. 21. Top 3 Eurorack modules. Okay, so before I want to say something. For a long time now, I didn't buy anything new. For a long time now, I'm trying not to look at videos of new things, of reviews. I'm trying not to look on ModularGrid. I'm not changing. I don't want to change my setup. I think that I got to the point already that it's a bit saturated for me in my head. All this Eurorack thing. So many videos out there. So many reviews. So many different modules coming out every time. So I'm not so updated on the last releases. Also, I didn't get anything new lately. So, but still I have 3 that I think are amazing. So this one, the ADEC Looper and Granular. It's a granular workhouse? Is this how you say it? No. What is this? Which house is it? Never mind. It's a granular place for adventure and experimentation. There is a lot to explore with this. I didn't even start exploring what I wanted and what it's capable of. It's amazing. It's crazy. It's huge. And there's a lot to do with it. One thing I'm missing here, and that's polyphony. I think such a big module, it would have been quite fun to have a MIDI input. You see the patch bay there on the left, a MIDI input for MIDI polyphony and playing this polyphonically. This is what I'm missing here, but other than this, it's quite fun and interesting and a great module for experimentation, sound design and whatnot. Another module I think is, I have here the Melotus, but I refer to the Versio collection from Noise Engineering. I think that the Modus was already in 2020, but still they keep releasing new firmware for this Versio thing. The Melotus is also quite fun. Granular delay, right? So I think all of this Versio line is a really cool thing that came out recently with all the different updates and stuff like this. And another one is something I don't have and hopefully will not have for a while because it's expensive, but the StarLab from Strymon. I have Magneto and I love it. I use it a lot. It's amazing for sound design, amazing for looping, for this tape character to add to your sounds. I'm sure that StarLab will be even more amazing because it's reverb, and reverb is more amazing than delay. I'm sorry, reverb is life. And finally, Strymon reverb in Eurorack. How cool is this? Really cool, with CarPlay Strong, with all sorts of different features. Again, I hope not to get it soon because it's expensive and I'm trying not to get anything new in the next few months, I hope. Or at least not to buy anything new. But this is amazing. I don't have it. I will have it once. I'm sure it's amazing. And finally, Strymon reverb in Eurorack. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Okay, cool. Let me think if there is something else I want to show you. So there is also a new audio module. You can see left, just a stereo in, stereo out. Right, so it's a small audio module. Something else here that I can show you. There is also a scroll wheel knob control. So now with the wheel of the mouse I can change, let me see what I can change here. Let's say the probability, right? I can scroll with the mouse and change the values instead of clicking and dragging. Right, which can be quite fun. This you can activate here, and there is also different modes for the knobs that you can change. Of course, there is the room brightness. We will see this later on. What else? In the engine performance meters, we saw this. This was available already before. The library should be different also when it's released. Right, so quite a few changes. There should be also more stuff coming, I guess. Of course, the VST also. But let's continue with the next question. We already have, wow, 48 minutes. I recently attended a modular synth live performance. Can you imagine performing live on a stage? How would such a gig look like? Is it possible to generate a patch from scratch on demand? This is a great question. Yes, so if I can imagine performing live on a stage, I'm not so sure anymore, to be honest. 2 years ago, just before COVID hit, just before lockdowns and everything, I got my setup ready for live performances. I got the laptop I wanted, the modules I wanted, everything was working, and then lockdown came, and 2 years later I'm still here. I didn't perform anywhere live, and since then my way of thinking changed also a bit. I'm not so sure if I want to be on a stage performing. I'm not so sure this is what I want. I'm not so sure it fits my music. There is nothing to see. I mean, just a bunch of cables and me turning knobs. It's not so interesting like someone playing guitar or a keyboard or whatever, or an orchestra or a quartet, or even a pianist. You know, there is nothing to see there. So me on a stage, I'm not so sure. Maybe with visuals. I always wanted to have visuals with my music. This can also be great. Maybe something like Bena Hafar, what she's doing. She's just standing in the center of the crowd. Everyone is around her. Everyone can see what she's doing. She's a part of the crowd. Maybe this can be cool. Maybe something like, I forgot who it was, just no lights, nothing, just the music. This can also be interesting. I think also I would really like my music to be at least in quad when performing. I would love to experiment with quad. I don't have a quad setup here in my studio, but maybe in the future. So yeah, I still have a lot of thinking to do, how I would like to do this. A patch from scratch, this can be really fun. This is something I love doing. Actually, this is how I started with modular. I started with VCV Rack, making patch from scratch videos. I think this is something I really enjoy. It can be fun. Sometimes there might be silence, which might not be fun. Sometimes the pitch, is drifting, things are going out of control. Still, this can be a part of the experience. I think anyway, I would like to keep an improvising part for my live performances, so things will anyway be happening in live. Yes, I still have a lot of thinking to do. I'm not so sure what to do with all of this. I'm also not so certain how much gear I can take with me, so it will be a small setup, I guess. So yeah, I'm not so sure. It's a tough question. I don't see myself performing live soon because of everything that's happening everywhere. But still, I'm still thinking of it, and yeah. Okay, I want to continue with there's another question that will be with some music, so we'll add more voices to this, but let's continue with this one. How do you record video and audio from VCV and synchronize it? Okay, also when I record music, I have the video recorded in OBS, just the video recorded in OBS, and all of the audio, which means microphone, VCV Rack or hardware or whatever, is being recorded with Reaper. Now if this is the setup, I'm just doing like this, right, and I sync later the video with this audio. If there is music, I hit mute, for example, right, I do something like this. So in the video I see when I hit a mute and the audio is muted, so I can sync them. If it's with the hardware, sometimes I will just play a note and then I will sync to this note. So again, video with OBS, audio with Reaper, and then I synchronize them later. It's not so complicated actually, it's easier than it sounds. Yes, this is how I do it. Okay, the next question. This is the last one. Golden Pyramid. I recently watched your video on creating a multi-tap delay in VCV. I was wondering, how would you approach a simple time-lag accumulator or a more complex expanded instrument system? You play something that will come back in the future. I like this sentence. In VCV. Cheers. Thank you, Golden Pyramid, for the question. So basically, what we are talking here about is delay before there was delay. You have two tape machines, and the distance between them is basically the delay time. Right now it's delay, it's also looping. Basically you can do this with any delay. You can do this even with the chronoblob. You set it to 100%. You set the delay time, which is basically the distance between the machines. Right, so basically we are speaking here about delay and looping. Now there was once an idea of one developer, I forgot who it was. I just need another schluck, just a second. That said he would like to add the option to change how his modules work in relations to their distance. Right, so if the module is 10 HP far away from one another, the modules, they will work in one way. If they are 15 HP, they will work in a different way or whatnot. If I remember correctly, someone mentioned that this is possible to do in VCV, which means that if you want, you can build two modules, two tape machines, and according to their place in your patch, this will be the delay time, right? And then you have more or less a replicant of this idea. But again, you can use just delay. Basically, what I like to do, you can use Simpliciter, for example, which has sound on sound, which is similar to how the Morphogen also works. Also on the Morphogen you can do this, right? And you can record. I will not do it now, I will use a different module that is also fun, but you can record, play it back, of course, just like tape, and then record on top, and it will record what was playing back and what you played on top, and so on and so on. So you get really interesting loops and really interesting delay lines that you can use and record. And there is also the lilac looper, which is also quite interesting. Yes, it's a looper, but still you start recording something. Only when you hit stop, it will play it back, which is basically the delay time. And you can record on top and on top and on top and just play like this forever. So this is what we'll do now. Again, this was the last question. I will just play a bit, then I will show you the lights off function and the bloom. Thank you again, Patreons, for your support. I'm still here, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just thanking you already and reminding you also to join our Discord channel. Again, there are challenges. I'm going live there also a few times a week. And yeah, join us, a helpful community. And yeah, quite fun. Let me see, what shall I use? Let's use Plats. Let's use Plats. Let's use Plats. I will use it in FM mode, right? And I will have my MIDI keyboard, so I can play it. Volt per octave. What I will do, I will not use the trigger, but I will use again my MIDI keyboard. Here's the MIDI CC to control once the level and once the FM amount, right? And this will go to the looper, and from the looper is polyphonic and stereo if you want, which is quite cool. Let's see just as it works. Right, it works. Let's add some reverb here. Okay, so I'm going to play with this a bit, just going to loop. You will hear how it loops after I finish recording. Then I will activate the lights off and everything. So thank you again for watching. Yes, and cheers.